Okay, wow. Oh my God, that video was insane. I have so many goosebumps. So, anyways, hi, I'm Emily, developer advocate for Linea. If you haven't met me, I guess you're meeting me today, but I'm just really excited to announce something really, really big. Linea Mainnet is here, and we're doing a live stream to basically celebrate, learn, and figure out how to build on Linea moving forward. So we'll forget about introductions. It's not boring. It's, I guess, boring for me to keep talking. So let's go ahead and take it off to Nicola, who will be talking about the evolution of Linea and how we got here. So, cool.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Very pleased to be here. So I'm Nicolas Liochon. I'm going to show some slides. Here we are. So I'm leading the Linea team. I used to work in research. The Linea is the result of long years of research, actually. And I'm going to introduce a little bit what's happened. So if we speak about Linea today, Linea, well, it's a testnet on Girly. We've got a lot of transactions, 50 million transactions, a lot of wallets, a lot of contracts. So that's what is Linea today. But now Linea is a little bit more than this. We started with alpha release on Mainnet, and we're at the beginning of a new story. This is the beginning. And beginning of what? Well, actually, I don't know. Because what Linea will be is something that we're going to build together. But taking a step back, what is Linea? And Linea, it's a rollup. And a simple way to define a rollup is to say, okay, we've got cheap transactions, and we got them forever. The idea is a rollup is a tool for scalability, so the price of a transaction will remain cheap forever. In our case, we are a ZK EVM, so the transactions that we are executing are EVM transactions, the same ones that you execute on the layer one, the same bytecode, everything is the same. So we've got cheap EVM transactions forever. So if you participated in the quest, you know that sometimes it's not that cheap or not that forever, and it's an interesting story. We'll come back to this. An important point for Linea as well is we still have training wheels. It's an alpha release. It's not a testnet anymore, but it's an alpha release, and it's important to remember this. And rollups are a key point, a key element of Ethereum architecture. The story of rollups is totally linked to the story of Ethereum 2. 5 years ago, we started the research on Ethereum 2 with the target of having proof of stake and scalability. Proof of stake was implemented successfully, and scalability became split in two. We said, oh, actually what is easy to do at the lower level is the data sharding that is arriving the next quarter in Ethereum. But we're going to put the execution somewhere else in the layer 2. So we've got layer 2 execution scaling that goes to rollups. And the main point in this story is rollups are a part of the Ethereum story. What we want is to get a successful Ethereum ecosystem living and to make it bigger. And why is it important? Okay, so we've got these cheap transactions forever that I mentioned a few times already. It's key to be able to have this because it enables new use cases, new users. That's a very important point. The security is a key point of this as well. Rollups are as secure as the layer one. It's a key element. But the ZK-VM is a very important element as well because it means that you can reuse all the tools and all the knowledge that is available right now. You can use it on rollups. You take what you are doing on the layer one, you can do it on Linea. The ZK-VM brings something else as well that is quite key, is the decentralization. It's one of the elements. It's not enough for decentralization, but it's a key point because it means that we don't own the way you write smart contracts, the way your smart contracts are compiled, the way your smart contracts are audited. It's a standard defined by the Ethereum Foundation and not by us. So here we are. So from this, we want to build a great network, a great ecosystem, and the values, this will create a community. Community has values, and community defines the values by themselves. But I would like to propose one, which is cooperation. And cooperation is actually quite important for Linea. We do have cooperation implicitly with Ethereum. We use Ethereum for the data availability. We use Ethereum for the specification of the ZK of the EVM. That's key. Cooperation is as well quite important with dApps. We want dApps to be successful on our ecosystem. We want dApps to be able to cooperate between themselves. We want all of this. But there's as well another level of cooperation, which is you're building something which is very new for Ethereum itself. So there will be cooperation, I expect, in actually all the actors in this ecosystem. A little bit of competition, but as well much more cooperation in the long term. Last thing, we're getting there from the work on so many people. So there's a long list there about people who are participating in the research, people participating in the implementation, in the design. That's an incredible amount of work that has been done. Partners are very important as well. We find them as well. And all the people who participated in the testnet and will be with us for the alpha launch. Thanks a lot, everybody. And I'm done. I'm going to stop sharing.
Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Camarda. I am a Director of Corporate Development here at Consensus. We focus on M&A, strategic investments, and fundraising, and most recently have been leading the Linea Ecosystem Investment Alliance initiative on behalf of the Linea team. Thanks to Nicholas for taking us through the history and how we've got here. I think definitely takes a village, and I think it's a perfect transition to what we're talking about here today with the Linea EIA on how we're going to support projects building on top of Linea. So with that, if we could bring up the slide here. Awesome. So who are we? The Linea EIA is a group of investors that are dedicated to supporting projects on Linea in both capital and in terms of resources as well. We have over 30 venture capital firms signed up. As you can see, some of the names here in the bottom right. What are we doing here and why are we doing this? I think we recognize that raising capital, even in the best of environments, is difficult. And what we wanted to do is put together a program that connects the top projects building on Linea with the top venture capital firms in our network, not just Consensus. And so what we've done is we've been very intentional about those who we partner with in order to ensure the highest level of engagement and operational excellence and interest in what we're doing here. I think also it's important to note that we look at companies across stage, across life cycle, and that really, if you're a builder in any sense of the word, we want to hear from you. I think last to note here, in addition to capital, we're going to be providing things like mentorship sessions, coaching sessions with the team from the Linea side, mentorship sessions with our VC partners, demo days, access to accelerator programs, and on-site and off-site networking opportunities. Last, how can you get involved? If you're a builder, the easiest way to get in contact with us is to go to linea.build.com and go through the apply for funding button. That's going to take you to a web form. You can fill out all your information. You're going to have everything that we need from you, everything you need from us in terms of what we're looking for, who's involved, et cetera. And from there, a team member will be in contact with you. If you're a VC that's looking to get involved with us, please feel free to reach out to anyone from Consensus or anyone on the corporate development team, and we'll be sure to get in touch. I'd say lastly, just to kind of sum it up for everyone here, our message to builders is that there are resources and there are companies here that are dedicated to supporting you. We can't wait to see what you're building, so go ahead and apply. And I think that will wrap it up for me.
Okay, cool. I think we're live. Yes, I'm really excited. I think it's super cool learning about kind of like Linea, I guess, funding its ecosystem, Linea past to present. I have the opportunity to actually interview one of our kind of community builders. So specifically, Linea has had a presence at quite a few hackathons. Trevor, I met you first at the ETH Global Lisbon hackathon. And then later on, I met you again in Waterloo. And then I found out you also live in my hometown. And so I was like, who am I going to interview for this? And I was like, Trevor is like awesome. He's building stuff like really cool things at the hackathon, really cool things also outside of the hackathon. But I've been talking too much. Let's actually talk to the person who's important in this room. Trevor, would you like to introduce yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Emily. Yeah, my name is Trevor Keith. I'm in crypto and blockchain. I go to a lot of hackathons. I love building. I'm a builder at heart. So it's great to be here.
Yeah. Okay. So let's talk about kind of this builder energy, right? So we're in Paris right now. The community is crazy. We have ETH Global Paris going on. I'm assuming you're hacking at ETH Global Paris as well. Kind of, what's the thought process that goes behind, I don't know, from hackathon to hackathon to hackathon? Yeah, enlighten us.
Yeah, well, it's a great way to kind of to meet the community, to see old friends, to meet new friends, and to see what's going on in the space, both in terms of technology, partners, and different players. Great interacting with sponsors like Linea to understand how to integrate the technology, and just really good energy overall. So I go to as many as I can.
Yeah, awesome. And then I guess could we dive into a little bit about like why you decided to build with Linea at the hackathon?
For sure. Yeah. So honestly, Linea was very straightforward to build with. I've built on other EVM chains, so I just switched over my RPC. It worked right out of the box. Very quick transaction times, very reliable. Exactly what you want in a technology that you're using at a hackathon or in a real product as well, of course.
Yeah, awesome. So I actually want to dive in or let you like showcase what you build, right? Because I think when we talk about building on L2s, there's so many use cases like NFTs, DeFi, social. I believe you built something in the verifiable credential space. So I think that's super exciting, a little less common than, you know, the very early use cases of crypto. So I don't know if you had like slides you wanted to go over. I think you prepared some, right? Yeah.
Yep. So what I built is called Credential Corgi. I've been diving into zero knowledge proofs, and verifiable credentials are a great place to apply them. This is just a quick diagram of what I built. So basically, it's a way for entities to publish on-chain definitions of structures of credentials, and then for issuers to issue credentials using those and proof requesters, meaning someone who wants to actually check that someone holds a particular credential, to easily request these proofs. This is by combining blockchain, zero knowledge proofs, and LLMs as well. So it uses GPT-4. And so this is how it works. So you can just connect your MetaMask wallet to Linea. And so you can see here we're authenticated with Linea, and you can describe a credential structure that you want to publish to the blockchain in plain English. So we're going to describe a pilot's license here with name, expiration year, and whether or not it's valid for commercial. That gives us this structure, this well-defined structure, which we can then publish to the chain. So we give it a name here, pilot's license, that publishes it to the chain, and then we get this transaction ID of the structure published on the Linea network. So anyone can go in and see this list of structures. Right now, we just have this one, pilot's license, and they can choose to issue a credential using that predefined structure. So now you can see we can populate these fields that were defined by the structure that we created. Let's say Vitalik has a pilot's license good through 2030 that is valid for commercial flights. So now we'll issue this credential, and it generates this Poseidon hash compatible with zero-knowledge proofs and publishes this to the blockchain as well. So now anyone can look at the blockchain and see we have this credential linked to a specific, well-defined, agreed-upon structure. And let's say Vitalik wants to fly into a particular airport. That airport can send a proof request to Vitalik saying, let's ensure that he has a pilot's license valid through at least 2023 for commercial flights. That will generate this request, give us a unique link to send to Vitalik. And when he lands on that link, he'll get the proof request, and he can put in his credential data, his KP verifying hash, and he can generate the proof that gets sent back to the airport to show that he really does have that verifiable credential. So, it's a very kind of user-facing use case of verifiable credentials in ZKP combined with blockchain. Linea made it very quick and easy to publish all of this data to the chain, something that would probably be a lot more expensive on ETH or another layer one.
Yeah, awesome. I think this project was super cool because it's like a double zero knowledge kind of whammy. I think a lot of times I talk to builders and they just like have this idea of like zero knowledge is only for like credentialing and identity and stuff like that. And then on my side, I'm like, oh, we're using zero knowledge for scaling, right? And so it's kind of you're using zero knowledge on zero knowledge. I don't know. It was fun. I thought it was cool. But I guess you did win a prize, I believe, kind of for our ETH Global Paris Hackers coming up this weekend. Do you have any advice for, I guess, our budding applicants?
Absolutely. I mean, hackathons are super fun. They can also be stressful. I think every time I go in planning to sleep at like 10 p.m. and end up sleeping at either 6 a.m. or not at all. But I think my best advice would be go in with a big vision, right? Have like, a huge problem you want to solve, and then break the product down into much, much smaller pieces and start with something really simple. Oftentimes, the simple projects are what do well. They're a good starting point for a bigger vision. And if you can tell just a really concise story about a simple starting point to a big vision that you build, you'll do well at the hackathon, you'll make great connections, and people will just understand what you built a lot better.
Yeah, absolutely. I like that you touched on like vision kind of, because I think on the judges side, especially, we are looking at so many projects in a very short amount of time. So being able to capture our attention like immediately with like, this is the pain point that we have, like, this is how we're solving it, and setting that stage for like helping me understand why you're building something cool is really helpful. So yeah, super good advice. I think it's really interesting, and I'm really excited to talk to you specifically, because I think my experience with a lot of hackers, right, is they'll go to ETH Global hackathons, hack for 2 days, and then just kind of like drop the projects. That's not necessarily a bad thing. I think a lot of people are students, right? They're not trying to build dApps and drop out of school and do all of that stuff, right? Not that I'm saying you did that, but like you do kind of like build and then take things past the hackathon, right? What does it look like to do that? Advice there, challenges, I don't know, take it away.
For sure. So I think the amazing thing about the blockchain space is that so many real products in blockchain, real companies that we use today started at hackathons, right? There's definitely way more of a hackathon culture than other industries. So at the hackathon, just, presenting to judges, to sponsors, and, if you become a finalist, presenting to the crowd, you meet a ton of people who are interested in your product. They could be investors, they could be potential customers or partners. And there's like a real possibility of, very, very quickly scaling a project beyond the hackathon. So as an example with Credential Corgi, I've had outreach both right at the hackathon and, days and weeks later from people who saw the presentation, who are really interested in using it for different use cases. So now I'm diving in, doing some market research about using it for medical record verification and age verification. But the whole community has been super supportive. So I think, definitely if you believe in the idea, run with it beyond the hackathon. Use the hackathon as a way to meet people, a way to learn. But most of these products start at a hackathon. So.
Yeah, I think you definitely touched on something interesting about like hackathons being such a prevalent part of Web3, I think, as compared to Web2. And the other piece I really like that you mentioned was like making those connections, right? What I see with hackathons is actually a really great place for proof of concept, for sure, like external validation. Other kind of models I've seen too is like maybe you're not building something completely new. But maybe you're already building something and you just want to like hack on something, test like a specific component of it, gather your team for some team bonding. And that's also a really great avenue. Like hackathons kind of are there to facilitate both like new builders, existing builders, all of that. But anyways, that's all I had for you. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm really excited that you're here in Paris. Excited to see what you build for ETH Global Paris. Other hackers, don't be alarmed. We have multiple prizes. Trevor's not going to take all of them. But yeah. So I guess we will kick it off into kind of a panel where we'll be bringing on talking about what makes a successful L2, and highlighting some of the builders in the space, specifically on the Linea side, and how we're kind of crafting the idea of where we're going. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Emily.
Okay, woohoo! Thanks for that, Wait. We have all of our panelists here together. Like I said, we're going to talk about kind of building a successful L2. Specifically, I want to talk about, I think questions I get a lot are like, where do I build? Like, what's the difference? How do I decide? There's so many, right? But like, I think with that in mind, our team has been putting a lot of thought, right, into how we're building out Linea. So I guess before I start asking questions, let's actually introduce yourselves first so people know who we're talking to. So we'll start with Nicola, go to Declan, Shuya, and Matthias. So that's the running order of who says their name next.
Hello, everybody. So I'm Nicolas Mélenchon. I've been working at Consensus for 5 years now. I joined Consensus to participate in the research of the Ethereum 2 protocol, which led to the creation of a research team, and bigger. We've done a lot of research on scalability, which led us to rollups, and it led ultimately to the creation of a Linea unit that I'm now leading.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Declan, leading the product at Linea. I've been with Consensus for just over a year. So been with the team building Linea since the very beginning. Obviously, it's quite a new project. Before this, I've been working in the space for many years, building various dApps and core infrastructure pieces. So happy to be here.
Hey guys, my name is Shu Yao. I work in the business development part of Consensus and Linea. I've been with Consensus on and off for 6 years. Good to have everybody participating in our launch. Excited to talk more.
Hey guys, my name is Matthias. I do product strategy for MetaMask and Infura. Very excited to be on this panel today with the Linea colleagues.
Okay, cool. I guess to open the conversation, let's start with the theme. Like, what are the drivers of a successful L2? And to get us started, so there's not any awkward pauses while someone waits for someone to finish, I'm going to popcorn from Declan, Shuya, Nicola, Matthias. So remember that in your head. Declan, you're first. Everyone else, you should know. I just said it to you. Yeah, so what makes a successful L2? What's a driver?
Yeah, lots of things. I think one of the key things is obviously the developer experience. So making sure that we make it extremely easy for developers to build and manage their dApps on the public blockchain like Linea. There's many pieces to that. Developer experience is a pretty ambiguous term. So what does it mean more concretely? For us, we really wanted to make sure that developers who actually had existing dApps on Ethereum were able to keep that same developer experience, but move their dApp with zero switching costs to a layer 2. So to someone like Linea, where you get low gas fees and high throughput, but you still keep the security and decentralization properties of Ethereum, making that process as seamless as possible, which is one of the reasons we decided to make Linea a type 2 ZK EVM. So what that means is Linea is fully EVM compatible. So in terms of the developer experience, we actually use the same compiler as Ethereum, the Sol C compiler. So this means that your interface with the network is exactly the same. It really is just as simple as changing the chain ID that you point to, and then you just sort of deploy your dApp, which is an unbelievable experience to get the sort of scalability properties of layer 2. So that's really exciting, but it's also important because we can unlock new use cases by enabling existing developers in the ecosystem, specifically Solidity developers, to actually build new use cases from scratch on layer 2 without having to learn new tools or new programming languages. So again, just like reducing that process, that onboarding experience in order to sort of reach your market. So that Linea is a type 2 ZK EVM. The other important thing about developer experience is performance. So obviously you want to make sure that the ecosystem or the network that you're building on is performant. We've kind of approached this in multiple ways. So with Linea, you get far lower gas fees than a L1 like Ethereum. You also get much higher throughput, so you can fit more transactions into a block onto the system at any one time. You also get fast finality as well. So you also want to make sure that if you are having an off-chain system like Linea, that your actual guarantees are as fast as possible because you want to perhaps do a bridging transaction, or you just want to make sure that your economic value is secure. So how did we approach that at Linea? We spent a lot of time, as Nicola mentioned, on the R&D side, on the prover. So we have this amazing innovative system on the prover. We call it Vortex, which is our sort of inner proof. Vortex is really quite amazing because it uses lattice-based cryptography. This is something that's not really seen today in the sort of scalability space, which is faster than elliptic curve cryptography. But it's also really optimized for self-recursion. So what we're able to do on the sort of zero knowledge side is we're actually able to generate a validity proof, a zero knowledge proof, and then compress it iteratively, so recursively compress it. And that means that we can get that proof to be really small before wrapping it in a final compression step and then settling on Ethereum for cheap gas fees. So that's quite technical, but what it basically means is that the end cost for users and developers who are building on the platform is much lower than you'll get in other systems. So we're really excited about that and the future of optimizing that system even further. But even then, it's important to not get too hung up on the prover. So the prover is really important, but also there are bottlenecks on the execution side. So this is something that the Ethereum ecosystem has battled with for a long time. Like, how much can these execution clients do in terms of processing? We're extremely fortunate that we actually are in the same company as the Besu team. So Besu is one of the leading execution clients for Ethereum, been battle tested over many years. And we're actually able to work with them extremely closely to make sure that our throughput and our execution performance is exceptional. So that's also something that we've got for Linea. We'll continue to reduce block times and increase throughput. And what this means for developers is you can get a user experience or developer experience, which is much more similar to a Web 2. Like, it's almost instant confirmations. You don't have to worry about how many transactions are on the ecosystem at any one time because it can deal with the load, even with sort of burst demand as well. And then just circling back, so the developer experience is not just technical, but it's also the support that you get. So we really focused at Linea to make sure that we provide anyone who's building on Linea, they have enough technical and financial support. So the EIA, so the Ecosystem Investment Alliance mentioned by Michael earlier, is a great way to help new teams get funding and help to build up their products and test it in the market. But we also have a fantastic community as well that are ready to support onboarding to Linea, like amazing on Telegram, on Discord, all these different places, and people are there to guide you every step of the way and help you find users as well, which is what really is really important to a lot of these teams and developers. In terms of actually seeing this play out, we've been very fortunate with the Linea testnet to see some amazing early partners who are actually using the properties offered by Linea to enable new exciting use cases. And a specific example that I'm really excited about is we saw a lot of use of account abstraction as sort of a new paradigm in the space to improve user experience. We actually on Linea testnet saw more use of account abstraction sort of components in any other network available today by an order of magnitude. So that's something that we're really excited about for obviously onboarding more people to crypto and more people to Web3, which is really what we're trying to do here by scaling Ethereum.
Woof, that was a lot, Declan. I feel like you stole everyone else's thunder. But that's totally fine. We're all here for it. That's why you're product lead, to lead the product. But hopefully, I think the rest of us can find some bits and pieces to add extra to what Declan's monologue epic saga that was just here. So Xiao, feel free to go next.
Yeah. I think the only thing I would like to emphasize is Linea can never be Linea without our partners and people who are using our networks. And that's something the entire founding team and Consensus is striving for. We want to provide the best technology, the best supporting business support, the best customer support, the best spiritual support. Consider us even as your therapist. We're there for you when you encounter any difficulties and when you're stuck in anything. So to me, a successful ecosystem is we grow together with our developers. That's it. I'll pass it on to Matthias.
Thanks, Ria. Yeah, I think from a wallet perspective, it's an exciting new design space overall. And the Linea team, as Declan explained, has created a very, very compelling proposition that for MetaMask in particular opens up a new ecosystem. And we are a proponent of permissionless innovation. We want to enable and provide users and developers with access to really the frontier of Web3. And so Linea ultimately is very exciting, and I think will drive a lot of new innovation in the entire ecosystem. I'll pass it on to Nicholas.
Yeah. And something that could add to this is, I think it's quite important to understand that it's a long-term game. It's not about doing something big next month and forgetting everything. It's really a long-term ecosystem, something that is going to last for a long time. So it's important to have this vision. This vision impact and is impacted by the technology as well. We're using zero knowledge proof. It's something that is new, but it's something that is still evolving. There are new schemes, new ZK schemes invented, I would say, nearly every day. And the key point of this is both not to jump on every new technology every morning, because you're just destroying everything, but as well to understand that you will need to change the system and the culture of the team needs to be, we're here for the long term, so we need to be able to manage changes. Exactly like Ethereum does. Ethereum is changing quite a lot. Some people say that it's changing too fast. Some people say that it's changing too slowly. We can have many debates, but the key point, it has to change. And we're on things that will change as well. We will improve things. So we're saying, for example, that transactions are cheap, but they will become cheaper. We're saying that we can scale, but we will scale even more. That's quite important to have this long-term view. Something else that I think is important is all the flexibility typically around use cases. We're saying, okay, cheaper transactions, okay, but what to do with this? And I think we will discover new use cases that will impact a lot the way the blockchain is designed today. And we're very happy to say that the EVM is a standard defined by the Ethereum Foundation, that many things are defined not by Linea, but outside of us, and it's perfect. But I think it's important to, what I do expect is the new use cases will push Ethereum, including Linea, to new things. And I don't know which ones, but I think it's important to have this in mind as well. Something that is key as well in this ecosystem, or on the people building it, building the technology, is the fact that it requires many different technologies. Like we mentioned zero knowledge, Declan mentioned Bezu, and if you want to have a very fast layer 2, you need a very good prover, and you need to have a very good client implementation. So this is all key, and managing, being able to understand all this complexity, very different, pure computer science, pure cryptography, I think it's a key point as well. And lastly, I think for us at Consensus, there's as well, I said new use cases, but as well, an important part of the future, I think, will be how, in the vision of Consensus, which is how can we make the system better for everybody. You don't need to be an expert to use the blockchain. You can manage your keys without risking to lose your funds. I think layer 2 and Linea offers a lot of potential, because things like account abstraction that are expensive on the layer 1 becomes incredibly cheap on the layer 2. So it's still the same use cases, but this opens absolutely new way to interacting with the blockchain. You don't have to pay for your transactions, you can recover your keys and so on. And this triggers as well new use cases for applications. So I think applications should think, oh, now I can use account abstractions. Could I change totally my workflow around this? And this is thanks to Linea, and I think it will be important for the future.
Awesome. Wow, you guys did such a good job. I structured the questions in a very specific way that I could dive in deeper with each of you. And now I'm trying to figure out how to ask questions without making you repeat yourself. But we'll try. Hopefully you guys can also be creative at the same time as me. Yeah, I think like also when I kind of think about successful L2s, right? L2s to me, I always describe as a city to an extent, right? We sit at a place of infrastructure, right? So the roads are beautiful, there's nice trees, etc., like stuff like that. But if there's no stores, there's no restaurants, there's none of that, who would want to come to that city, right? So I think Shuyao, like your position of like global head of business development, maybe you could tell us a little bit about like, you know, what has Linea been doing to attract these stores? What if you want to be a store at the therapeutic city of Linea, what kind of opportunities are there, and like what's maybe reflecting on also a bit of the traction that we've seen thus far, right? We have like over 140 something. Like how, why? Take it away. Boom.
Yeah, so I think my written answer before this call was the boring one, but I will spice it up. I think
Okay,
we have to
good.
hold our standard high. But you know, if I were to open a restaurant, which I would definitely open a hot pot restaurant, those who know me know that I like spicy food. So if I put myself in a developer's shoes or a restaurant owner's shoes, I would want to be in a good neighborhood with the right infrastructure, just a lot of people, right? If you don't have people, don't have the right infrastructure, you're probably running a ghost kitchen, a delivery shop. And we're not here to onboard a ghost kitchen. We don't want to be a ghost chain. We don't want ghost steps. We want a lively ecosystem with cuisine from all over the world. Therefore, we're providing the right infrastructure, which I think Declan went pretty in details of what they are. But then also, where do we get people, right? Like getting a restaurant in Manhattan with infrastructure and people are expensive. But what we're providing here is that because the consensus influencing other part of the tech stack, such as MetaMask, we automatically have people. So we're basically providing the Manhattan value at a, let's say, a nice Midwest city price. So developers who are building on Linea is getting a true bargain. So that's the metaphor I would use. But honestly, joke aside, for the last, let's say, 5 months, we've been working, preaching, talking to a lot of developers, and you know, we're being very honest with them. We're not paying developers to build on Linea. We think that's adverse selection, which has a bad lemon issue. Developers genuinely want to build on Linea because they believe that we're here for the long term. We have the right technology. We're always going to be back then. So obviously, there's fundamentally a trust issue, the trust foundation between us and the developers. So far, we've got a lot of the foundational DeFi projects. We have really good traction with games because the proximity to MetaMask, and we're doing something extremely innovative in terms of identity attestation protocol. So we're building an aggregator for all the existing identity protocols out there. No one else is doing that other than us, because we believe, you know, if we're gonna do the Web3 things right, we have to introduce new Web3 native primitive. And Linea give us and our community an opportunity to experiment on things that's just new and novel. I think that's why we built here in the first place, and we should never forget about it. So that would be my answer to you, Emily.
Awesome. No, I really like your kind of Manhattan analogy. For those of you who are in New York, and I'm just gonna, I guess, ignore every other part of the country, because I guess that's how New Yorkers think. Also, like, I guess other countries in the world. I guess you can kind of see maybe Linea as like early Brooklyn, maybe Williamsburg before it was super hot. Manhattan is Ethereum, the L train, super fast, super easy. Like we are early Williamsburg to now become tech city capital of Brooklyn, I guess in New York. If that makes sense to you, great. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. I'll try to come up with something for Paris that makes sense. I'll have to confer with the team because I don't live in
Or
Paris.
it's somewhere in Hong Kong in Asia. We're a global company.
Yeah,
so
we're a global
we're gonna
company.
find a city. Yeah.
Yeah. This is what we're gonna figure this out after the call. How do we do this for every big city across the country? But yeah, awesome. No, Shia, that was awesome. Let's take it back to Declan. You dialed pretty deeply, I think, into the technical side, gave us a good overview of the prover. I think maybe I want to like reverse it back in the sense that, you know, Linea is both a user and a developer side, right? And I think you kind of offhandedly mentioned the word like type 2. And I think it'd be good for people who just like aren't familiar with the space, maybe to like get a view of like what it means for us to have that goal, right? Like I think, and in that narrative, also like why does a user care that we are going for a type 2 when they're not developers? So I don't know, hopefully that'll jog your mind.
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's one that's not always obvious to users as well. So I think it's worthwhile for us to try and do a better job of explaining the differences in these systems, especially around trust assumptions. So I think just taking a step back and looking at the landscape of what's out there today when it comes to scaling solutions for public blockchains and for Ethereum. You know, first of all, we pretty much settled on rollups being the best way to scale Ethereum. That's part of the actual Ethereum Foundation's rollup-centric roadmap now. So we've sort of moved on from the idea of having side chains or alternative layer ones and doing things that way. Instead, we have this paradigm of rollup because it gives much better security and liveness assumptions. So actually being able to make sure your assets are safe and you can withdraw them from a chain in the event someone was being malicious. Okay. And that's actually a really important and fundamental change from what we had previously a few years ago. The sort of first solutions to come along were the optimistic solutions, which kind of helped to sort of alleviate some of the pressure on the bull market a few years ago. However, the kind of key differences between optimistic solutions basically optimistically assume that a layer 2 system is playing nice, is being true and valid. If not, then there is a sort of a little challenge mechanism that happens. But ultimately, you're optimistically assuming that it's good. Whereas with a ZK system like Linea, we're almost being pessimistic, right? We're almost actually saying, right, here is the state of the world on a system like Linea. We send that to Ethereum, and then we follow it up with a proof, zero knowledge or validity proof that says, yeah, this is in fact true. So that's really powerful because you're moving from a world where it's, crypto economic guarantees, where people have to stake money and, be good, otherwise they sort of get slashed, to a world that's sort of cryptographic. So we're now trusting maths and validators instead of, the trust of third parties, which is a really important evolution. Tangibly, that means that we can bridge, so we can actually have withdrawals from, one chain to another extremely fast, because we don't have to worry about this mechanism of waiting for people to be verified. That's really powerful in terms of finalization and making sure that we have, really sort of efficient way of moving capital from one chain to another. So like an example I like to give in terms of like nation states, so countries around the world, obviously in financial markets, interact with one another. By having a sort of capital efficient bridge, it's like a financial market that doesn't have foreign exchange controls. And we often see that those kind of countries often bring in a lot of liquidity and a lot of activity. So zero knowledge is definitely the future. It's something that we're really excited about, and Linea spent a lot of time, perfecting as a solution. There are other zero knowledge rollups, and most of those zero knowledge rollups today have focused on not extending Ethereum, so not extending the EVM. And that means that you might have to learn a new programming language. It means you might have to onboard a whole new ecosystem, a whole new set of dApps and tooling, and just start from scratch, start from the very beginning again, which is not really the point. Like, we want to extend what we have already and just take that to another layer that's scalable and decentralized. So that was our focus for Linea, which is why it's a ZK EVM. And that's when we get into the sort of difference between what Linea is, which is a type 2 ZK EVM, versus what might be called a type 4 ZK EVM, which is more sort of language compatible with Ethereum, but not actually bytecode compatible. And then in terms of, there are other zero knowledge ZK EVMs in the world, in the landscape. So the real difference there is things like such as the prover that we touched on earlier. Again, really excited about what we've done there. Spent years in R&D, as Nicola mentioned, perfecting this thing. There's more to do, but we're on a really good path. Got the right foundations. We're already, we haven't even explored deeply the ability to accelerate the performance through hardware. So there's many areas for us to get to a stage where we can eventually prove Ethereum blocks or prove things within 12 seconds. So in terms of the landscape, just to sort of recap, we've moved on from side chains and alter ones because we have rollups. We now have zero knowledge rollups, which is great because we don't have to worry about the trade-offs of optimistic solutions. And then in terms of the zero knowledge rollup space, we can actually extend the developer environment of Ethereum pretty much perfectly, as we have on Ethereum, with a scaling solution like Linea. And then the cool thing about Linea is we have this prover, which is extremely fast, and we also have the connection to all of the other consensus products.
Okay, very cool. Good job, Declan. Next, I want to pull in Matthias, right? So I think you touched upon earlier how you're like involved with like wallets, right? And I think one of the strongest propositions, and I think that's really smart, like with Linea, is like that Linea MetaMask interaction. So I'm kind of curious, maybe like from a broader view, right? Like the role of wallets in L2s, and then maybe pulling it back into like Linea, and like how MetaMask is kind of powering Linea, and we're creating this kind of good synergy between the two. I don't know. I hate that word. If you can come up with another one, don't say synergy, but take it away. Yeah.
No, that's a good question. I think the way I would probably approach this is by looking at what's in for developers, what's in for end users. And probably what's helpful as well as this context is that we see the near-term opportunity, we see medium-term opportunities, and we see long-term opportunities. So overall, I would say any wallet has the ability to obviously bring users to this ecosystem, but MetaMask in particular, I think, is very well positioned to bring a lot of users and potentially also a lot of liquidity to the ecosystem. MetaMask is one of the most established wallets overall in the ecosystem, and I think there are a number of unique parameters to MetaMask that make the experience on Linea unique compared to other wallets, in particular because we are so composable, we enable and unlock so many new use cases at such early stage that other wallets really don't provide. And I think that's a very exciting opportunity for anyone to explore, in particular the new primitives that are being built on top of Linea. Ultimately, Linea is available to MetaMask users today, but what is more exciting is that we are currently focused on enabling Linea also as a default network. That has a number of advantages. Number one, it's not only easier to find Linea in the wallet, but we'll ultimately bring the full MetaMask experience to end users, which means that we have a curated set of the most established primitives on the network available right in the wallet, in particular on the MetaMask portfolio. For those, by the way, who haven't tried the MetaMask portfolio before, it's portfolio.metamask.io, and you'll have the opportunity to essentially use sort of these most established DeFi primitives directly on the portfolio, swaps, bridging, etc. So that is going to be available relatively soon, and we're very excited about that. In addition to that, switching now to the developer side, I think for developers, obviously it's exciting to operate in a new environment and build on this new design space. Something that we are very excited about on the MetaMask side is in particular the Snaps ecosystem that we're currently building. We are building towards enabling developers to build on top of MetaMask. And what that means is that essentially you'll be able to not only deploy directly on Linea, you can basically deploy indirectly on Linea by plugging into MetaMask and leveraging the existing MetaMask footprint and distribution channel that we have. That's going to be available around September. So be excited for when Snaps V1 is going to be live. And then forward-looking, ultimately, there are going to be a number of new use cases that we want to enable long-term as well. Thinking of in new forms of onboarding users, easier forms of onboarding users, which ultimately will expand the scope of Web3 users for MetaMask and for the Web3 ecosystem in general. We're very excited about new areas like gaming, Web3 social, and thinking about account abstraction in particular, which I think will enable a lot of new interesting projects that ultimately we want to support in MetaMask as well. There's one upcoming panel that I also want to just flag for those who are interested and participating in ECC, There's going to be a panel with Alex Jupiter to talk about the future of accounts, and that's also relevant in the context of Linea, because many of those future accounts will be enabled through such networks and on such networks. So if you're available on Thursday, 1 p.m. Central European Time, either virtually or in person, highly recommend that talk as well.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. I think also something I think that is really interesting about like MetaMask versus Linea, and maybe like Linea versus others is, we talk a lot about like user experience being like low gas fees, transaction times. It's so easy to use it. What do you call it? An L2, right? But I think Linea has this really interesting aspect of like the user experience, right? That default network, that frictionless like onboarding, that I think makes us very special. So yes, we're almost out of time. So I'm going to actually pass it over to Nicola to kind of close us off. You are the lead of Linea. I'm kind of interested in what you think about like the future of Linea. I think I really like what you touched on in the beginning about like, we're not just in the now or the next month, right? There are existing problems we need to solve with ZT tech being new. How are we looking at like centralization or decentralization of L2s? Grace us with your knowledge, please.
Yeah, so clearly the future for us is decentralization. It's a key element. I mean, if you just create a purely centralized solution, you're just going to create a lot of issues all over the place. So decentralization is the key point in our roadmap. Aside to this, but it's actually part of decentralization, is improving the zero-knowledge technology. The fact is, the faster it is, not only it becomes cheaper, which is already good, but as well it means that more people can run it. So the 2 points are leading toward this better decentralization. And something else that I think is quite important for Linea as well is to be considered as a very generic rollup. It's not about being specialized in a niche of use cases. It's about being able to support all types of use cases, including use cases that we don't even know about yet. And hopefully as well having these cooperations between use cases, people mixing games and DeFi, flash loan to buy something that we can play a game with, whatever, I don't know. But really, that will be how we will love Linea to be as generic as possible.
Okay, awesome. Yes. Shio, I'm so glad you got on. I saw there were some technical difficulties, but that's okay. It's good enough that we can all say goodbye. I know we had quite a few questions let me put it this way. We sent out a community forum for questions, and we got over 2,700, so 2,765 questions, which don't have time to answer, but if you join our community call in July, like the end of July, we'll be going and sifting through all of those. But thank you guys so much for joining. I'm going to basically pass it off to our next session to talk about, our community and probably why a lot of people are on this call. So thank you so much. See you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Hello. Hello, I think I'm live. So yeah, thanks Emily. Thanks Emily a lot for this intro. So 10 weeks ago, we stood gazing at the goal of Mainnet Alpha, something that, as many of you know, came today. So we believe strongly that the best way to prepare Linea was to do it together. By together, we mean exactly with the partners building on the network and the community of users that we serve, that is also you. And we sincerely hope that many of you are here today for this live stream and to celebrate Mainnet launch. So
We're humbled that our voyage attracted so many who gave so much of their time to help us stress testing Linea and supporting all the projects that build on Linea in testnet. So if we have to give some details and data around the quest, here is a sum up in this upcoming slide that will be shared now. So it's actually, okay, sorry, it was supposed to be this one. So just as a recap and as a sum up, during these 9 weeks of campaigns with 5 on-chain focus weeks, we had over 5 million wallets that voyage with us. Among these, over 700K were verified humans. So this was a great success for us, that also denoting how big this was. We had over 90 million page views for the Voyage Quest campaigns. Another even greater success for us was to have more than 50 partners involved, making this, or that is the Voyage Quest, one of the largest quests ever on Galaxy. Another thing that really made us happy was that we saw a community that helped and emerged to help one another. Our support team alone saw over 80K messages this past month on Discord. Many of them were micro discussions, and we saw community members addressing challenges, helping each other, and also suggesting flows that help our Voyage partners improve their offerings. We know that the seas were not always smooth. Testnet was at capacity because of the artificial cap that we had to put on it in order not to impact on Gurley. Faucets had some issues because of the high traffic and the high spamming of the network. But Linea and our partners emerged stronger thanks to the effort of this community. And now here we are, the moment that all the Voyagers have been waiting for, and as Emily was saying, the reason why many of you are here today. First of all, I want to express our sincere gratitude to all the Voyagers that have been part of this. Today, we want to recognize the nearly 352K Voyagers that really stood out over the duration of the 9 weeks of the quest. The Voyage leaderboard in Galaxy is now final. No more points are being given out to any participants of the voyage because it has officially ended. So, now the good things. Let's get into the details of the prizes. There are 5 total tiers for the prizes. The first 4 tiers are going to be part of the NFT airdrop, while tier 5 is going to be an open edition NFT that users in that tier will be able to mint. We designed these tiers in order to reward as much as possible the really active contributors of the quest that were able to verify their humanity and get ahead of the bots. So, going into the details, we have tier 1 that is dedicated to the Alpha NFT edition. That is for users that got more or equal than 3,400 points. And this is a total of roughly 27K users. Tier 2 is dedicated to the Beta NFT edition and is for users that got more or equal than 3,050 points, but less than 3,400 points, for roughly 50K users. The tier 3 is dedicated to the Gamma NFT edition for users that got more or equal than 2,740 points, but less than 3,050 points, for roughly 100K users. Tier 4 for the Delta NFT edition is for users who got more than 2,500 points, so at least the proof of humanity plus any other task, even just 1 point, but less than 2,740 points, for a total supply, that is the total amount of users, of roughly 175K users. The Omega edition is an open edition that is for all the participants who got less or equal than 2,500 points. This is roughly 4.7 million wallets. And another thing that is important to state is that all the private beta testers that came during the phase of private beta testnet will get into this tier 5 and will be able to open mint the Omega NFT edition. We really hope that the users who gave so much feel rewarded, and in order to commemorate their efforts, Linea has commissioned a set of digital art pieces inspired by their contributions to the network, which, in partnership with Consensus NFT, will now present and drop to these outstanding Voyagers. So now, Bob, to Consensus NFT and James. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Emma. It is fitting that the first major NFT collection on Linea will serve as an enduring testament, not only to the community that helped it bring it to life, but also an example of the sort of scalability attainable on the network. Today, we'll airdrop over 352,000 NFTs to top participants. And in partnership with Consensus NFT, we'll make a commemorative NFT available to the remaining 5 million Voyagers who, whether they committed a single transaction or gave us feedback on social, contributed in their own way to the future of the network. But before we reveal each NFT, Nick, why don't you share some background on what Linea means?
Sounds good. And thanks so much, James. And congratulations everyone to being a part of this exciting moment. This is really a celebration of everyone who is involved in the origin of Linea. So let's talk a little bit about its origin story. We have always seen this network as more than just technical. It's a venue and new space for builders in Web3 to create, gather, and participate. It's a new world to explore, and it's suitable for the next generation of Ethereum scaling for global mainstream adoption. Linea is quantum, it's foundational at the protocol level, and it's celestial. It's a new universe to build in. Linea, the word, it means a line or a linear body structure. It's also any long, dark, or bright marking stretching across a planet or moon's surface and visible from space. Here are some examples. The Rhadamanthus Linea and the Agenor Linea, both on the surface of Europa, a moon of Jupiter. Viewed from a distance, the global scale and impact of these structures are clearly visible. The roots of the word relate to a line, a geometric line, a line of thought, a line of descent, and a lineage. It features in the words linear and lineage, as you see here. So Linea is a planet-scale linear formation capturing the lineage of human value. So with that, let's introduce the Linea Voyage collection. We designed these NFTs with our creative partners at Unconfined, focusing on the emergence of this new global network through the stages of development, instantiation, growth, experimentation, and connection. The collection illustrates how individual efforts, that's the efforts of everyone on this call and everyone who's paying attention to Linea and participating in the voyage, how all those individual efforts coalesced into a powerful wave of collective action that drove the network forward and is helping usher in a future marked by efficiency, scalability, and innovation. This collection celebrates the Lineans. It's the early community members whose contributions really helped shape and test this network. And it also is a celebration of the transformative power of community collaboration. The top 4 tiers, however, focus on the efforts of specific cohorts of the community. So we will start with Delta. The Delta edition represents the inception of the network, the moment of instantiation of the testnet and activation of the community effort, sending waves of energy throughout the network and setting into motion all the potential to come. This was designed for the roughly 175,000 participants finishing in Tier 4.
Thanks, Nick. I believe next is Gamma, which you just saw. There you go. So the Gamma edition illustrates the collective endeavor of the community of Lineans, growing the network through experimentation and iteration. towers of blocks emerge from the shared foundation, symbolic of the new landscapes built together. This edition was designed for the roughly 100,000 participants finishing in Tier 3.
Next, we have Beta. The Beta edition depicts the energy, activity, and the transactions that help to form this new global network. It embodies the motion and dynamism characterizing the vibrant community that made all this happen, and it highlights the unlimited energy and potential of Linea. This NFT was designed for the roughly 50,000 participants finishing in Tier 2, and these NFTs recognize some of the top finishers and most committed participants in our voyage.
And finally, we have Alpha. The Alpha edition depicts the entire story of Linea so far, through each of the stages of development, instantiation, growth, experimentation, connection, and adds the final stage, the completion of the voyage with the launch of Linea Mainnet. Let's take a look. Wow, I hope you all enjoyed this video. The Alpha edition represents the highest honor of the Linea voyage and is reserved for the top tier of participants. Designed for the roughly 26,500 participants finishing in Tier 1, these NFTs explore the full world our community built.
But that's not all. We also would like to present the Omega edition. An endeavor of this size isn't achieved only by the top participants. Every voyager contributed in their own way. So the Omega edition is here. It depicts the initial development of the network and the assembling of this vast community of individuals, the Lineans, who collectively shaped and strengthened the network's foundations. This is an open edition, and it's extended to celebrate this event with all of the remaining participants of the Linea voyage.
Thanks, Nick. So we're really excited to commence the drop of these NFTs, starting with the Alpha edition right now. Over the next few hours, Linea will process 352,000 mints, batching those proofs and sending them to the L1. Once all airdrops have been completed, we will announce on our social channels that the open mint will begin and will remain open for 1 month. All voyagers can therefore claim their piece of this historic moment that will serve as an immutable proof of their contribution to the network. In all, we expect this to be one of the largest collections in the history of Ethereum. Full details can be found by scanning this QR code, and our support teams are standing by to help. So that is all for today. But before we wrap up, I will now let our founder and CEO, Joe Lubin, share some closing remarks.
Thank you, guys. Linea. We didn't call it line. We didn't call it linear. We called it Linea, denoting the fastest, most efficient path between where you are and where you want to go on any complex curved landscape. Linea doesn't denote old school or Web 2 zero-sum efficiency, where someone wins and 99% lose. Linea and Layer 2 plus ZK EVM are about bringing greater scalability, usability, and newly economically viable use cases to the metropolitan Ethereum ecosystem. Linea is about building positive feedback loops in connected communities, always curving back to ensure everyone is served well, and that negative externalities are brought into the calculus and properly accounted for. In the long term, this is the efficient path for all of us collectively. With exponential technology rapidly evolving humanity, Linea and scalable decentralized trust represent a through line from where we are now to a future that can be managed via transparent, decentralized trust systems. Linea is core technology for the age of community and collaboration. The future of Ethereum is being written and scaled on its L2s, and today, with Linea, we begin a new chapter. L2 technologies will scale Ethereum exponentially, each undergirding multiple L2 networks, L3s, L4s, and higher, to bring scalable, decentralized trust to all the world's systems, from DeFi protocols to DAOs to NFTs, to identity and reputation systems, to real-world assets on-chain, to nation-state political voting systems, and to the many coordination applications that require less stringent security guarantees, like games, clubs, events, and even marketing systems with integrity. These will find inexpensive solutions in the higher layers. This new innovation of decentralized trust, a higher powered form of trust, is what our ecosystem is all about. It will take time to accelerate economical access to decentralized trust for so many kinds of use cases and business models. To serve this need, the L2 ecosystem, cooperatively and competitively, is now kicking scalability and affordability into overdrive. It takes a village, and we're honored by the unprecedented community effort that emerged to birth Linea. I'm proud of the collective achievement of the Ethereum ecosystem to bring L2 and soon higher layers to life. The road to serenity, as Ethereum 2.0 was often called, was to be paved not just by independent and diverse groups of core devs, independent researchers, various client teams, and many businesses working on the core protocol itself, but also by the communities of higher level protocol and app builders and users, inspired by its potential. All were captivated by the vision in its evolving form and drawn to contribute to its development, to shape it together as a transformational public good, similar to the early builders of the internet and web. We mark this historic moment with the drop of one of the largest NFT collections in history. The Linea Voyage collection marks the effort of the hundreds of thousands of early contributors who individually and collectively helped raise Linea. The collection, an on-chain act of co-creation by a community 5 million strong, raises the bar for what can be achieved with the new L2-enabled scalability. 352,000 NFTs will be dropped. Millions more will be minted. This would have been unthinkable on Mainnet, but will become commonplace when EIP 4844 comes online and gives L2s wings with jetpacks and afterburners. Linea is a long marking on a curved surface of a celestial body, like a planet. It denotes a process that had profound effect, and one that has been marked nearly indelibly for the extended neighborhood to observe. It marks the indisputable truth of the history of that body. Decentralized trust and shared truth is humanity's Linea. Under Web3, everyone is a builder. Thank you all for participating and building with us.
Oh my God. I don't know. I have goosebumps. That was the first time I saw the NFT bit, and then Joe was like so inspirational. But anyways, I'm going to stop gushing. I'm here to basically close off the live stream. I guess to do that, I just want to give a big round of applause to everybody who made this possible. So for the researchers and the engineers who worked on Linea and weren't able to be on this stream, everyone just give them a big hand. For our customer success team, who was such a big part of the voyages and helping you guys build and test and stress test. Oh my God, that was amazing too. Please give them a round of applause. Who else do we have to thank? The last piece, obviously, and the most important piece is everyone who is a builder, user, involved in the Linea community. I think the one thing that we wanted to hammer home is Linea is not just tech. It's an ecosystem, it's a community, it's a group of people really excited about scaling the future of Ethereum. And so give you guys a round of applause yourselves. So to close off, I guess it's easiest if we just end on a few action items. First off being, go and check out your MetaMask wallet. Mainnet is open to the public. That means you can start deploying on Infura. So if you go to Infura, you can find the Mainnet RPC URL there. If you're users like bridging, getting involved with like actually using Linea on Mainnet, that is open to you. This is a historical moment. Get really excited. And the last piece is, I think the title is Linea Mainnet Live in Paris. That means we are all alive in Paris right now. So if you guys are fortunate enough to be in this area, Linea is hosting 2 side events tomorrow, Linea Unconference and Linea Lapro, where you can meet the team, learn more, just get excited and connect with the builders in our community. You can find all of this information on our Twitter. I guess the last piece is follow us on Twitter, find our blog at linea.mirror.xyz. Check out our website, linea.build. This is where you can kind of explore, the past of Linea, the present of Linea, and the future of Linea. So that's all I have. If you've been on here for over an hour with all of us, thank you so much. But have a great rest of your, what day is it today? Tuesday, I think. Yeah. Have a great rest of your Tuesday. So goodbye.